The prince, in a moment of afterthought, regretted his hasty words, wishing he had remained silent. Ian confronted the young man with a questioning look, questioning his next action. Riley responded with a look that implied the obviousness of the situation. Before he could react, the prince's shot cut through the air, taking Ian by surprise. Pluck and the girl chased Ian, while the man questioned him about his fate. Ian, however, blocked the way, asking them to wait. The old man protested, claiming that he could not allow his passage, but his words were interrupted by a Pluck's attack. Ian managed to block the blow, while the man lamented the numerical disadvantage. A Pluck advanced towards the prince, promising to punish those who disrespected the nobility. Raleigh's blank stare disconcerted the man, who felt a growing discomfort. Grabbing a Pluck's wrist, Raleigh confronted him firmly. "You see, Plog, your solemn words about being discovered are particularly intimidating," Raleigh teased. Plog found himself unable to escape. Confused by his opponent's strength, he channeled his blue magic, but realized his powerlessness against Raleigh's determination. The third prince intervened, squeezing Plog's hand tighter, eliciting a groan of pain. The girl, worried about her master, tried to get help, while Han watched in silence. Plog questioned the young man's identity, intrigued by the lack of signs of mana manipulation. Riley watched Plog's hand, intrigued by his intention. The throbbing pain in Plog's arm made him groan, as the girl tried to run away in search of help. Angrily, Riley threw Plog at the girl, expressing his desire for a peaceful life. Ian watched in silence, surprised, as a large hole opened in the wall from the force of the impact. The prince approached Plog, inquiring about his name. Without waiting for a response, he instructed Plog to listen carefully. Riley, with a threatening look, warned Plog about the consequences of his indiscreet words. Submissively, Plog agreed, with terror in his eyes. Riley coldly warned that any disclosure of the incident would result in drastic consequences for Plog. This time, Plog readily agreed. Ian, perplexed, questioned in his mind the words exchanged between Riley and Plog. Riley called out to Ian, placing a hand on her shoulder. He ordered him to resolve the situation there and then, and that, if anyone asked, he should state that he had acted on his own. Ian was not amused by the order and appeared slightly disgusted. The prince said goodbye to Ellie, praising Han as a mercenary hero. Taking full responsibility, he asked her for a favor. Riley pulled away from the stunned Ian and settled in next to the attackers. Later, he returned to the room and told the girls what had happened. Zara inquired about Mr. Jan's whereabouts. The prince responded nonchalantly, mentioning that Ian seemed to have changed. After waiting in vain for the old man, he left. It seemed like an eternity had passed. The cleaning lady mentioned hearing something similar to an explosion recently. Raleigh, turning away, denied having heard anything and suggested that it might have been Ian. Zara, with her good hearing, doubted, while Raleigh took another sip of his drink, feeling the coolness. The prince appeared again drunk, which did not please his mother and the maid at all. Realizing that the competition was about to begin, Raleigh inquired into the nature of the contest. Zara explained that there were rumors about a quest for supremacy, raising the expectations of many, including her. Riley mentioned the main candidate, and the maid asked if he had seen a young man with 2 swords, characterized by white hair and blue eyes. The third prince found the boy charming and remembered his brother Joy at that age. Zara explained that he was the only participant to use 2 swords, anticipating an exciting confrontation. By revealing that the boy was from the Jiniri family and that this was his first competition, he aroused the interest of Raleigh, who admired his rapid rise. Zara also mentioned secret competitions between the participants, intriguing the prince even more. Zara highlighted an additional rumor circulating about the boy's superiority over the Ipiet clan, surprising Lady Iris and Raleigh. The latter highlighted the dominance of the Ipiet clan when it came to sword skills. Riley pointed out that, in this case, it was not wise to expect good results from the boy. Zara, on the other hand, had a more favorable view, praising his courage and masculinity. As he watched everything in silence, Riley smiled. The referee explained the rules of the fight, making it clear that the death threat would result in disqualification. Her opponent looked confused, while Zara expressed some optimism. The prince, upon witnessing the scene, turned to Zara. He asked if anyone had any information about the individual in question, specifying whether he was referring to the rival candidate's opponent. Initially, a maid had difficulty remembering the young man's name. Meanwhile, the referee was preparing to give the start signal. Zara recalled that the noble in question belonged to the Erencium family. The the swords fell from the hands of the renowned swordsman, Grenier, leaving him slightly stunned. All the spectators were shocked when a prince from the darkest family was thrown. Firmly, the man held his sword, preparing for the attack of his opponent, armed with a red pen. Now, he seemed somewhat more confident. Riley watched the competition with fervor, commenting on Erenchen. The image of the family's first prince echoed in the mind, the man the prince had left hand to. The third son murmured that he had also used that style at the time. The young man was paralyzed after the blow, looking at his opponent in surprise. Had he understood? The Prince of Gynia fell to the ground. The judge approached and helped him to his feet. Rising quickly, they announced that the winner was the second son of the Erencium family. Multicolored confetti appeared and applause echoed through the crowd. Aprian looked pleased, although he was still hesitant to fully believe in his victory. Riley reasoned that if he compared Aprian to his brother, the smell of the pills wouldn't be as strong. However, Riley was convinced that Aprian had not won solely through her own skill. Now that the prince remembered Han, he questioned why the old man had taken so long to intervene. Zera jumped with joy, while Lady Araz soothed her lovingly. Riley couldn't get Ian out of her thoughts. Maybe something had happened and he needed to go back. However, this did not seem to be a viable option. Zera brought more hamburgers and reported that the owners of the house had already eaten. Riley thanked the waitress. The third prince tried to reassure himself, convincing himself that nothing had happened to Ian. That simply couldn't happen. Meanwhile, Jan was gently lifting the red-haired girl, but she insisted on helping the teacher first. Jan explained that due to his mana defense, he had fewer internal injuries and therefore she should be the priority. The girl leaned on Ian's shoulder. Images and screams echoed in the old man's mind, remembering the young gentleman's words about wanting only a peaceful life. Ian recognized Aplog's strength and remarkable abilities. However, he reflected that regardless of everyone's talent, his master was already skilled. Although he didn't express it out loud, it seemed like the gentleman had demonstrated his level of skill. Now, the old man wondered if Ian had been purposely restrained during the mana measurement. Ian fell into his thoughts. Could it be possible that the young lord was a dragon that manifested on Earth? Dragons were supreme beings with a life expectancy of 10,000 years. Sometimes, for mere entertainment, dragons assumed human form. Ian could find no other explanation for such strength. Despite the prince's youth, Ian sighed, unable to conceive of such a possibility. He had witnessed her birth and watched every moment. Suddenly he remembered the lady, remembering Lady Aras holding her son for the first time. Now, the old man reflected on the lady. If that was the case, everything would be clear, and the abnormally large force would be understandable. However, the last lady had died in poisoned blood. Ian wondered if a majestic dragon could be a victim of poison, or if it was a fragility of the human body. Absurd thoughts tormented him, and he was forced to return to reality, coming to his senses. Ian continued to support the injured girl by her shoulder. He emphasized the importance of the teacher. Before finishing, he approached Prince Aplog and praised him. Even though they were both injured, he proudly declared that, according to him, Mr. Raleigh had become the best man. The girl and Aplog looked confused, not understanding why Ian was stopping them. Ian continued extolling the gentleman's nobility. Confidently, he stepped forward, assuring them that they would not regret it if they thought about it. He remembered the prince's mother's request to keep the secret and suddenly stopped. He felt a slight sadness when he remembered that they had agreed to keep everything secret. Suddenly, they were interrupted by someone. Ian turned around and saw a group of people, led by a young woman in white shoes. When he looked up, he recognized them as members of the Temple and the Order of St. Frisia. Their presence there surprised him. Frisia explained that they were there as a guest of the temple and came to inform about it. Ian felt a chill, as they had actually come to collect the spectators from the previous event, and they were looking for Raleigh. After a brief moment of silence, Zane suggested that Ian should also be aware of this. Zera, yawning, commented on her strange feeling, perplexed that the person they supported had been defeated so quickly. Lady Araz remained silent, but asked about future competitions, being told by the waitress that there would probably be no more as it was prohibited by the rules. Lady Iris confirmed that the competition had ended that day, quicker than expected. Zera noted that there were fewer participants this year compared to the previous year and mentioned that the opening ceremony had been celebrated on the day, bringing forward the semi-finals and final the following day. She looked towards the balcony and added that she did not expect such a result from a member of the Erencium family. Lady Iris questioned whether that punch was truly that powerful. The maiden promptly replied yes, as the power of a punch was equivalent to that of Prince Leon. The lady then asked, and compared to the strength of Raleigh's punch? Zara did not expect this question from her host. She hesitated for a moment and stated that if she had not truly known the knight's abilities, she would have said that Mr. Raleigh was not his equal. She vividly recalled the confrontation with the goblins, then corrected herself. She explained that surprise wasn't the right word. In fact, I was completely amazed. Unlike the second son of the Erenzium family, the Lord showed no hesitation in his blows. He remained confident, and what surprised her most was his cold and unfazed gaze. Finally, Zara coughed and confessed that she couldn't determine who was stronger. She turned to Raleigh, but did not find him there, which surprised her. Lady Iris reported that the prince had long ago decided to go look for Ian since he left. It was then that Zara realized that, in fact, Mr. Ian hadn't left yet. She decided to let him know about this when she returned. The prince's mother laughed and commented that, suddenly, Riley was also looking for a companion besides Han. This made Zara a little embarrassed. She asked if the lady was really serious about the bride, and if that meant she really wanted the prince to get married. All the aristocrats had already left the room, without mentioning or discussing the competition. Lady Iris calmly suggested to Zara that something strange had happened there. She also noticed someone blocking the path, who appeared to be Yang. This time, Zara was not surprised and even lightly pushed the aristocrats in front of her. She saw two people supporting Han, who was barely able to stand. The girl recognized Riley and questioned why he was there. She soon realized that Mr. Riley was not accompanying Riley, and the lady inquired why the abbots of Solia's temple and the knights were gathered there. They apologized to the aristocrats for blocking their path as they left, without looking where they were going. Santa Frisia explained that they were now searching for members of the Pellet and Erenzium families. Zara was even more horrified when she saw Santa Frisia. Riley remained outside, leaning against the castle wall, holding a cloth object. The prince observed him and commented that he had not purchased those items the day before. Riley held a golden mask in her hands, with black cloth sewn around it to cover other parts of her head. The prince muttered to himself that this fool from Erenzium needed to keep his mouth shut, otherwise things might get serious, and Riley didn't want that. He noticed a magical blue light next to him, realizing that Ian had just said goodbye to the men of the Erenzium family. He directed his gaze in the direction where he had seen the blue light and wondered if it was close to Lower Solia. Riley let out a laugh, remembering that it was a long way to Lower Solia from there. Without difficulty, the third prince jumped over the opposite walls and reached the top of the castle. Upon arrival, he reported to Erenzium that he had warned them during the flight about the need for the pills. Inside the cave, lit by the dim light of some lamps, moans of pain echoed. The dark-haired thief, Hamel, was among them, lamenting that he was alive. Looking at his hands, Hamel doubted that those four people were from the people of Ipiet, but he soon corrected himself, recognizing his luck to be alive. He pondered whether it was morning or night, initially leaning towards morning, but upon noticing the light from the lamps, he concluded that it was night. He regretted having slept all day since they arrived the night before. He called Bat to check his status. The blonde was lying down, leaning against the wall, and Hamel complained about having carried him in his arms, almost destroying him. Beta, still trapped, cursed whoever had tied him up. Hamel worried about Beta, checking if he was okay, but Beta, angry, didn't forget to insult him. The blonde, with a scared expression, complained about his broken arm and the end of everything. He questioned whether Hamel truly believed that the nobles would treat someone from Lower Solia decently. Defiant, provoked Hamel, who tried to calm him down, without success. Beta continued to complain about what was done to him, but he stood up determined to sell his story. Hamel tried to calm him down, asking if he was going to look for the woman, while Beta, indignant, talked about the scum of the magic tower. Hamel insisted that Beta calm down, but he didn't listen. Even begging, Hamel couldn't make Beta change his mind. Beta offered Hamel a blanket, asking him to get up, but was met with silence. He urged Nani, the black-haired girl with a scar, to get up, explaining that he needed her for a plan. Nani wondered if there was really a way out for her. A carriage was gliding through the night streets of the city when someone narrated how he had attacked and dropped the second sword with a single blow, and then been attacked. It was Prince Aprian of Erenzium, winner of the contest, traveling with his brother, the first prince, Aplog. Aplog asked about his brother. Aprian finally directed his attention to him, denying that anything was wrong. However, Plog was unable to hide his nervousness. Aprian noticed, worried about the change in his brother's behavior, that he never got agitated, not even in competitions. Plog reassured him, but Aprian was surprised by his attitude. The red-haired girl also looked out of it. Sitting outside the carriage, he watched the brothers. Plog insisted everything was fine. Riley occupied the top of the carriage, relieved that he hadn't spoken, invisible from where he sat. He praised him for his silence, eager to guide him discreetly if Plog needed support. He was already preparing to remove the mask when something hit him in the back. Magic. On the road, some distance away, were Beta and Nani. One asked the other if it was the boy they were talking about, referring to Riley. Surprised, Beta didn't know for sure, but he was determined to follow the family that transported him. Nani, indifferent, stated that he recognized him as the target of persecution. The tension grew as Nani threw a bolt of lightning towards the red-haired girl, who screamed in pain. The frightened horses, pulling the carriage, overturned it, causing the brothers to fall. Riley, in disbelief, jumped to a nearby roof, surprised by the girl's magical powers. A scream of dark magic echoed, as Riley recalled his previous encounter with the girl, suspected of robbery. He realized he had seen her before in Solilla. The girl smiled at Beta, her smile as wide as her confidence. He entrusted her with the case, asking her to take care of herself. Watching him warily, Beta reiterated his need for her and added his conviction that she could handle it. An aura of blue magic surrounded him. Nani stated that he could not fail. Lightning shot toward Riley. Zara expressed her concern about the growing tension and imminent danger. Upon seeing him sitting with them, Frisia questioned his presence there, which was confirmed by the waitress. Intrigued, Frisia inquired about his current whereabouts. Zara was frustrated, remembering her excuse to go to the bathroom. Ian was also uneasy, interpreting the maid's grim expression as indicative of her anger at Riley's pursuit of the old man. She regretted not bringing the carabiners. Lady Iris asked St. Frisia if she would wait for him there. After a moment's hesitation, Frisia picked up the cup that Riley had used earlier. Lady Iris watched him in silence, while Ian wondered about the saint's supposed divine powers. He speculated whether she was using them to find her master. St. Frisia observed the third prince's cup, making Ian curious. Suddenly, she grabbed it furiously, causing the contents to run down her arm, worrying the priests present. When she regained her composure, she questioned Lady Araz about her words, who hesitated before answering, worried about Zend. Yan, watching in the background, was horrified, recalling the previous incident involving Raleigh and that girl. He assumed his presence there still irritated her. He considered it prudent for the gentleman to avoid meeting her again. A call interrupted the conversation as a blue-haired priest informed the saint about a terrible incident in the central district. He reported a red light in the sky, shocking everyone with the revelation. Meanwhile, Nani's lightning struck a roof, generating a cloud of dust and a purple electric light. Chaos broke out in the city, with cries for help echoing. The attack did not hit the masked man, who was watching from another place with Riley and the prince. Witnessing the scene, Ian reflected on how these events were only known from reports or books, never witnessed. The girl, overcome with anger, prepared to attack again, blaming Riley. The latter, in turn, skillfully avoided confrontation, both wishing each other death. The third prince pondered how someone so young could master so much magic. In front of Nani, some warriors were already gathering. They tried to interrogate him and ordered his surrender, but before they could finish, one of the knights was struck by Nani's lightning. Meanwhile, Riley watched, unsure of what to do. Zara was in the spotlight. They said that, unlike the girl, Ian would be more useful there. Considering his options, he thought perhaps he should at least contact the Arenchan brothers. A Plog and Aprian lay unconscious on the road, a ball of lightning approaching. Riley was horrified to realize that they were inert while she needed help. With regret, he accepted that he would now have to intervene. Nani released a fireball, directing another attack at the masked man. The third prince, paralyzed, watched the sequence of events. Now, Riley needed to redouble his efforts, facing the girl's simultaneous attacks. Surprised by her ease in using magic, he remained motionless while she pointed. Riley pondered the possibility of also mastering this skill. It seemed easier to him than the art of the sword, which demanded physical strength and refined technique. Magic even enabled teleportation, as Nani demonstrated by conjuring an ice spear and then throwing sharp rocks towards him, revealing his power. Reacting dexterously, Riley repelled all the ice spears at once. Watching in surprise, Nani gaped. An angry male voice ordered Nani to eliminate Riley, and it was Beta, visibly enraged. It took Riley a moment to recognize him, remembering his previous encounter as the individual who had attempted to rob. Beta advanced, and Riley lamented Hana and Zera's harshness, thinking that if they had been eliminated earlier, none of this would have happened. However, Riley concluded that he had no choice but to clean up his own mess. Nani was startled by Beta's screams, while the prince assessed his sword, ready to act. Meanwhile, in the magic tower, a man dressed in a blue robe ordered Ferda to bring out the culprit who had damaged the valuable mana measuring tool. The mission had to be completed before the tower master realized what had happened. Ferda, apprehensive, lamented the possible consequences, fearing that he would be expelled from the magic tower if he failed to find the person responsible without even knowing who it was. The man with glasses hesitated, while Ferda realized he had a suspect in mind, Riley, the lazy sword of the Ippolita family. However, Riley was low on mana, and Ferda didn't notice anything extraordinary about him. He was on top of a building, about to leave, making sure he couldn't be the third prince, which seemed impossible to him. Ferda found this completely unbelievable. After all, not even Grandmaster Astro had managed to damage this mana measuring tool, so he concluded that this lazy and troublesome sword, which had attacked him once, must be the culprit. Ferda rebuked the idea, stating that anyone on the street would find it absurd. He insisted that he needed to find the real culprit, and that this was just nonsense. Walking down the street, Ferda witnessed an explosion on the roof of a nearby house. Curious, he approached to investigate. He wondered if the explosion was in fact a fireball. Touching the ground, he felt the intense heat and confirmation that it was indeed a ball of fire. A crowd began to gather, clamoring for safety. With the city in an uproar, they accused the wizard of causing damage. Ferda, indignant, questioned who would dare to use magic to attack without authorization. Deciding to act, he ran towards the central square, where he felt he needed to interrupt the out-of-control magician. As he approached the explosion, he noticed that the city around the tower was on fire, engulfed in purple fire. Determined to get answers, he questioned the reason for the wizard's presence. Meanwhile, the girl prepared another attack. Ferda pondered whether she should have been banished from the magic tower. Nani launched another fireball, demonstrating confusion from a distance. Ferda, also perplexed, observed the scene. The masked man prepared to repel the attack with his sword, easily avoiding it. Riley blocked another beam, frustrating Nani, who was unable to harm him. Determined to show her strength, she decided to attack continuously, saving energy to prolong the fight. The girl released magical arrows, her power manifesting around her once more. Nani bit her lip, and her mana turned into arrows, flying in the direction indicated by the girl's hand. They addressed the third prince directly. Riley tensed when she realized that it was the girl who was using a different technique. The prince jumped from the roof of the building, dodging the arrows in his path. He expressed his surprise, saying that he used to dodge blows easily, but now they were becoming too weak. Nani looked sad and depressed, with a trail of blood on her chin. Beta jokingly asked if Nani could defeat him. Upon noticing that the girl did not respond positively, Beta became furious, demanding an answer. He shouted that he could beat the boy. A brief, silent yes was heard in response, so the girl begged Bat to believe in her, promising to carry out the mission at any cost, as it was her only friend's request. Finally, the girl looked determined and stated that she would carry out the task, even if it cost her life. Riley suspected something was wrong. He realized that the color of his mana was very rare. The houses in the neighborhood were still burning with purple fire, and smoke dominated the area. The color purple was present in everything, even the girl's ice spears. The prince considered that perhaps it was a special type of mana, something he had encountered in a previous life, meaning unique abilities. However, Riley still felt that something was bothering him. He reflected on how normally the dark purple color indicated powerful dark magic, but this mana seemed unstable and dangerous. The girl was suffering, and Beta couldn't understand what was happening. Then, Riley realized that she couldn't control her own magic. The girl wiped the blood from her cheek, confused by the amount. Nani noticed that blood was now also flowing from his right eye, where there was a scar. She looked at Beta in terror. The third prince realized that something was very wrong, and that they could not ignore this situation. Someone in the crowd shouted to pay attention, while another suggested that perhaps they should flee. Still another said that someone would probably take care of the magician. Screams and memories of his past life haunted Rowley. He felt as if fate was guiding him, as if he was forced to win. The memories and traumas of his previous life took over him. Manny expressed his intention to detain the group and let them escape, arguing that this was the only way to ensure their survival. Beta vehemently refuted this proposal. Nani resigned, said she didn't care if she died. The blonde grabbed Nani by the neck, continuing to scream, emphasizing that she wouldn't dare die until he killed her. Beta threatened that if she died now, she would just be a pile of useless bones. He then asked if she understood the gravity of the situation. Surprisingly, the girl was speechless, while Nani murmured that she had trusted her. Before she could finish her sentence, Beta interrupted her, scolding her for her ungrateful attitude, remembering how they had welcomed and fed her, and now expected her to work to support herself. He questioned her about her refusal to cooperate and the ugliness of her behavior. Beta continued his furious tirade, expressing disgust even when looking at her, perhaps the reason she had been kicked out of the magic tower. Then he turned his attention to Raleigh at his side. The prince exuded a terrifying black aura, with only his eyes shining brightly. Upon seeing this, Beta staggered and fell to the ground, hysterically asking what was happening. Raleigh declared it all over, pointing his sword at Beta and questioning how he dared to insult him. The exasperated prince stated that he could no longer bear her words and declared himself fed up with her presence. Beta was terrified, shaking uncontrollably. Meanwhile, the girl conjured a pillar of fire, and Raleigh was enveloped in an aura of purple mana. The prince caught the blonde's attention and easily undid the oncoming magical attack. Nani intervened, stopping the masked man from approaching Beta. Raleigh, perplexed by Nani's loyalty, considered her a fool and accused her of being complicit in the situation. Unconcerned, Raleigh ordered Beth to stay away. He scolded her briefly for her fuss, suggesting she get some rest. As Nani fell to the ground, Raleigh turned his attention to Beth, who was crying in fear. The third prince warned Beth that he was not as merciful as he seemed, and that if he was attacked, he would retaliate ruthlessly. Then Riley advanced, determined to decapitate the thief, but was stopped by the man's protective field. Raleigh looked up and saw an old wizard, proudly holding his majestic staff. The old man questioned the identity of Raleigh, who resented that more trouble was coming. Realizing that he had waited too long and that he was now faced with a powerful individual, Raleigh noticed the old man's energy currents, which extended to Solia and the fortress. Without delay, the old man declared that if Raleigh did not reveal his identity, there would be only one option left. A flame emerged from the magical staff, growing larger as the wizard raised it, proclaiming himself as the Great Master Asteroid. Promising to personally take care of the matter further, he insisted that they needed to go to the central square, where blood stained the walls and stone floor. The boy was heading towards the Great Master Asteroid. Further explained that he was only summoned in truly urgent cases, while injecting some purple into the bald young man's arm, highlighting that summoning his greatest teacher, Solia's representative, was not a simple task. The magistrate removed the gold from his bag, but Astrius reiterated that he was not to be disturbed, busying himself with his herbs and potions. Further insisted that the drugs for sale were not relevant at that time. He reported about an exile from the tower causing commotion in the square, which piqued Asteroid's interest again. He commented on everyone's possible death, with a mixture of surprise and irritation. The old man laughed at the situation and expressed his intention to enjoy the view and have fun at the same time. Further reminded him of one more thing. Another man was in the area, fighting with the old guinea pig. Later, the Great Master would remember these words when confronting the masked man. He questioned further about the intruder, and the professor denied knowing his origins, but assured him that he would not allow him to get away with causing disturbances in his territory. Riley's eyes widened, questioning the old man's self-proclamation as Grand Master, as he did not appear to be the same unpleasant individual as before. In the streets, people debated the danger of the situation and whether it would extend to them. When they saw Master Astroja, some were shocked by what they saw. The third prince observed the old man, pondering whether his abilities would be tested, deciding to check his strength. Astra brandished her staff and summoned a meteor. The master announced that he would deal with the intruder personally, stating that there was nothing to be done in cases like this. Riley prepared for combat. A fire and mana attack approached him, and he calculated 3 possible points of impact. The prince chose to split the beam of light into 3 with a swing of his sword. Astroy, surprised, reacted with disbelief at the intruder's skill, launching a water balloon in response to the impending attack. There was a massive collision, extinguishing the flames. In the midst of the smoke, the master was unable to locate the masked man. In total silence, he wondered about the intruder's whereabouts. His luck was tested when a sword came flying straight towards him. Astro erected a protective barrier, hoping to repel the attack, but failed miserably when the sword, thrust with great force, easily broke through the magical defense and hit him directly in the shoulder, eliciting a groan of pain. Anger took over him this time, and he shouted indignantly at the aggressor's audacity. As he looked around, he realized that the man had mysteriously disappeared. Nobles, clerics, and the saint continued along the stone path, their white robes standing out in the gloom. They stopped their march when Saint Frisia gave orders to move away, while she conjured a divine barrier in front of her. Recognizing the divine magic, Astro dispelled his own defense. One of the knights asked one of the clerics how it was possible for Master Astroy of the Magic Tower to attack a saint, considering it an outrage. Frisia faced the great master and realized that he was not looking at them, but at the central square. He ordered his companions to leave immediately. Meanwhile, Zera, Lady Iris, and Ian remained in the building where the competition was taking place. Despite the night already advanced, the waitress asked why Zen was looking for Raleigh. Ian coughed and turned to him, wondering if he knew anything. Before he could finish, another question popped up. Initially confused, Zera asked if Ian was really there. With a tired expression, he wondered if the others had already arrived. Worried, the old man inquired about the whereabouts of the third prince, to which he received a cheerful answer. His mother had said that Han was in the bathroom, so he went to look for him. With understanding, Lady Iris commented that they must both have missed each other. Ian was horrified to realize that the saint was looking for them and had fled. Zera applauded, suggesting that now that the young master had returned, it was safe to leave. They returned to the stone path. Riley turned to Ian, who stated he would go with them. He asked if the old man had resolved the matter, and Honor responded affirmatively, explaining that, although they were on their way to meet members of the Orencium family, they crossed paths with the saint, which changed their plans. The prince smiled, satisfied with the solution. At the end of the conversation, a discreet smile appeared on Raleigh's lips. She thought of the Harapo warrior. They decided to investigate her, as she had demonstrated remarkable abilities. Nani, leaning against the wall with her eyes closed, woke up when the man asked her why they were heading to the lower part of Solia. Aprian replied that there was someone they needed to meet there. Apollogue seemed overcome with horror, while Aprin displayed confidence. The man was not impressed by the girl's presence. He considered how long he could interrogate them, as the gentleman had many commitments. Aprian asked about his brother, but noticed that he was shaking and not responding. The young woman confronted the knight, questioning whether he shared the view that magic was exclusive to wizards. The knight, reprimanding her, confirmed that she had. Enraged, the girl asked if he was insinuating that respectable members of the Orencium family, renowned sword masters, were involved in magical matters. He insulted them, calling them nothing more than waste. The knight hesitated for a moment. The girl did not cease her protests, expressing her anger and pointing out that they were also harmed, losing a companion in the incident. The knight raised his hand, trying to calm her down before explaining. However, he asked that the statement be recorded later at the police station. Nat handed her a piece of paper, which the girl took impatiently, laughing at her meticulousness. Addressing his aristocratic brothers, he apologized for the long wait, suggesting that they return later and enjoy a meal first. Aprian agreed, urging them to leave. As they moved, he patted his brother on the back. The knight observed them, noticing the young woman's duality. The night was deep, lit by the full moon. Nani groaned on the floor, confused as to where she was, as she recalled her last interaction with Beta. She remembered his words, begging her not to die, insulting her and demanding that she stay alive until he avenged the attack. Nani, suffering a sudden pain in her chest, clung, remembering the insults of her only friend, Bat, and feeling rejected. The doors opened, revealing the figure of a man at the entrance. Nani wondered if he had woken up yet. Before her stood Raleigh. Surprised by his presence, she seemed to recognize him. Raleigh reported that she had not yet awakened and asked about Beta's condition. Indifferently, the third prince replied that he didn't know. In silence, Nani reflected on what had happened, while Raleigh expressed his perplexity, questioning how she had carried out the attack. Nani turned around and refused to provide any information. Riley insisted, demanding to know what kind of being she was. But once again, Nani remained silent. She stated that she was not just a mage, as the color of her mana was unique. The prince questioned whether it was an idiosyncrasy, an exacerbated sensitivity of the body to certain stimuli. The girl asked why he wanted to know. Riley, wielding his sword, noticed Nani's apparent lack of understanding of her situation. Feeling compelled to act, he threatened to cut her neck, expressing his disgust at having his time wasted on someone so fragile. Nani, frightened, questioned whether this would be her death sentence. Outside, the window showed a thin layer of frost, without a single leaf on the branches. A child, amazed by the snow, called out to his mother, praising her beauty. The mother, a woman with white hair and grey eyes, responded tenderly, declaring that the snow was a representation of her own beauty. The girl laughed, being affectionately called daughter. A white-haired teenager, Nani, radiated happiness. The woman stated that the girl was her daughter, just like her mother. Remembering her mother's words, Nani reaffirmed her belief in mutual trust. She recalled a moment when, as a young girl, she expressed her desire to be recognized in the wizard's tower. In another memory, Nani, still young, was immersed in an oppressive silence inside a fortress, powerless to intervene. She heard someone's terrified screams, begging her to stop, while others insisted she wouldn't be able to. When the screams stopped, a figure handed him a pill, declaring it was his turn. Perplexed by the pill, she wondered if she could resist it. The great Master Astroi, accompanied by prisoners and blood on the walls, encouraged her to persist, leaving her even more terrified. With a trembling voice, Nani begged the magistrate to kill her, remembering the episode in the Magic Tower, where her protective mana did not prevent her from being subdued. The other mages celebrated his apparent defeat, happy to have achieved their goal. They celebrated the fact that the mana remained in their body, cheering enthusiastically. Someone proclaimed that with these results, they would be able to create high-level mages. Nani finally realized that the experiment had come to an end. Now, with dark hair and a striking scar on her face, she emanated purple energy from her hands. The wizards informed her that that was it and that she was free to go home. Although wrapped in a thick brown cloak, the cold still bothered her. She asked if it was true, if she wouldn't need those drugs anymore. They assured him that he had and praised his efforts. Nani felt relief that it was finally over and the prospect of reuniting with her mother. Walking through the snowy streets towards her home, she knocked on the door. When asked about her identity, she identified herself as Nani, the snow-white-haired daughter. Tears were already flooding her eyes when the door remained closed to her. He repeated his name several times, crying on the doorstep of his own home. Looking back on these moments, Nani wondered what she could have done differently. Her tears fell onto the blade of her sword as she cried out for an explanation for her pain. Riley, in a way, understood the girl's suffering. Observing her with sympathy, he lowered his sword and advised her not to seek happiness in that way. He recognized that she had made mistakes, but believed that she could start over differently. By offering his help, he proposed a deal to help her rebuild her life. Nani, confused by the offer, stood up and expressed her desire to start over, even in the face of adversity. Riley clarified that he didn't intend to help her out of pure kindness, but rather because he identified with her search for redemption. He highlighted the importance of facing the truth and learning from mistakes to move forward. The girl was surprised by the prince's generosity and questioned why someone of his position was approaching her. Riley admitted that there was no specific reason, just an emotional connection he felt when looking at her. Meanwhile, in the criminal's absence, Master Astroi demanded answers about the spell that had damaged the stone, leaving the mages in a difficult position. Further admitted that there were suspicions, but no concrete evidence of the suspect's involvement. Astroi grabbed his fellow mage by the neck, making him scream in pain as flames formed in his hand. The master threatened that if they did not find the culprit, they would be held responsible or perish in hell. The wizard writhed in agony in Astroi's arms, while Furter bowed in apology and the fellow wizard coughed nervously. Astray released the wizard with an oath, calling them incompetent and ordering them to prepare to leave. He punched Furter and slapped the third wizard, cursing them for allowing the masked man to escape, as well as the one who destroyed the stone. Then he remembered the girl they had thrown from the tower and realized they had lost her too. After regaining his composure, Astray commented that capturing the masked man had been difficult and that there was a lack of evidence as to who had broken the stone. He then questioned why they had not found the transgressor of the magic tower, expressing his dissatisfaction with the seal's disappearance. One of the wizards, trembling, explained that the seal had disappeared. This infuriated Astroy, who demanded an explanation as to how this happened. The wizard confirmed that the seal placed on the object had been erased and offered to prove it. Astroy then asked about the Orenzium. The wizard, thoughtfully, replied that they hadn't seen them since yesterday, due to what happened that day. Around them were large closed wooden boxes, mentioning that they missed the last opportunity to take out the goods, hurting their chances in the fencing contest. Turning to Ferda, Astray asked about the problems in Lower Solia and whether they were under control. Ferda quickly replied yes. The Great Master, leaving, dismissed them with contempt, ordering them not to see them again. Ferda inquired about Astroy's fate, receiving a threatening response. He suggested that perhaps it was time to stop. Astroy angrily declared that the medicine now allowed a mage to reach the 7th circle, remembering Nani's expulsion and success in elevating mages to the 6th circle. Before Ferda could finish, Astray simply teleported away. Ferda remained alone in the large room while Nani asked the prince about his memories of the past. Raleigh pondered for a moment, catching the scent of a large wooden box, similar to the ones mentioned in the magic tower. Without waiting for an answer to her previous question, the girl inquired about Raleigh's actions. He explained that he had detected a strong odor there and was investigating its origin. When he opened the lid of the box, he found grass growing inside it. The prince took a handful and examined it, wondering if it was relevant. He turned to the girl, asking her why there would be drugs in the magic tower. A sudden scream behind them surprised them. It was Master Astroy. Recognizing the girl, Astroy questioned her if she was the transgressor. Nani trembled in fear at the master's figure. Astroy laughed, considering her an unexpected gift, and commented that she had become harder to find. Astroy turned to Nani, asking how she had broken the seal. Meanwhile, Raleigh had already donned a similar mask. He stood up and confronted the venerable man, asking him if he was the acclaimed Grand Master Astroy. The master questioned whether there was anyone else present, observing the individual with the mask. Riley stated that it was a familiar figure and asked if they recognized the mask. With some leaves in hand, Astroy noticed that they were not bored in the magic tower. The third prince asked the master if the leaves were his, remembering that such a practice was illegal in Solia. Astray was furious. Raleigh approached the girl and explained to the master that he was just looking for something related to her, removing a large fish. The masked man laughed, suggesting they relax and enjoy, wondering if they were right. The master, already gathering his fire mana, accused the masked man of being scoria and launched a fireball towards him. Nani was horrified, while Riley, positioning himself in front of the girl, intervened, wielding his sword and reprimanding her aggressive attitude. He questioned whether Astroy really was the Grandmaster, angering him further. Astray, enraged, launched another attack, calling them pathetic scum. Unable to understand how they dared to challenge him, Astroy was surprised when Raleigh skillfully cut off his arm with a well-aimed sword blow. Astra was stunned by the turn of events. Her eyes and mouth remained open in shock. Meanwhile, Raleigh stared at the old man coldly and calmly. Crouching to the ground, he grabbed the shoulder of the man, whose severed limb lay beside him, surrounded by a pool of blood. The old man cried out for his lost hand, while a horrified Nani covered her mouth with her hands, shocked by the scene. The Great Master cried bitterly over the loss of his member. Raleigh, indifferently, warned the master to leave or face living with only one arm. The old man, holding the wound with his other hand, screamed in agony. The masked man happily reported that he had severed the largest artery, and if left untreated, the man would rot like a dog. Astroy, furious with himself, realized his carelessness. Raleigh moved away, preparing to teleport, while the masked man kicked his master's hand and sent him away. The prince approached Nani, questioning whether they should continue the search, indicating that she had mentioned something about a nearby location. Astroy, confused, didn't understand what they were talking about. Raleigh, sticking his sword into the ground, suggested that a staircase led to the cellar. Surprised, Astroy could hardly believe that the masked man knew about the basement. With a strong blow, Raleigh caused the stone floor to give way, revealing a hole. The Grand Master screamed in horror, while the masked man surmised that he had found what they were looking for. Nani, surprised and a little scared, witnessed the events. The masked man, excited, was attacked with a knife in the back by the witch. Nani, facing the wizard, denied his direct instruction. Blue magic stones enveloped Nani as Nani explained that it was Ferda's teacher who taught her. When Raleigh heard the familiar name, he turned to the girl. She clenched her fist, dismissing the words as mere noise. Activating her magic again, purple mana enveloped her as she reached out her hand, daring Asteroid not to interfere. Furious and fearful, the old man threatened her, but did not dare to counterattack, just teleporting away. Riley stated that the old man, despite having lost his hand, was still a good person and had mentioned this a long time ago, but was confident that everything would be fine. Like a wizard, he was determined to find a solution to the problem. Nini, crouched on the ground, agreed that she wasn't in her best condition either. The girl questioned why he hadn't just killed the old man instead of cutting off his arm. Riley understood the implication behind the question as he held the sword recently used to open the floor. The prince explained that his goal was just to get a full picture of the situation. Beside them, a staircase led down to a lower place. As they walked down the stairs, the girl asked about their next steps. Riley exemplified that he only wanted peace and tranquility. Then, something extraordinary happened. After the incident, Riley turned to Nini and asked what she would do in her position. He indicated that he would retreat and stay behind. Nini took a step back. As they descended the stairs, Riley expressed his determination, mentioning that he would let the world fall or even the devil himself rise. He explained that, when faced with a critical situation, he preferred to speed up the process, just like someone who lit the fuse of a bomb before observing from afar. As they reached a door, Riley explained that they were about to do the same. The girl started to question, but was interrupted by Riley's question about whether she would follow him. With determination, he walked through the door, suggesting he go first. Nini hesitated, watching him in silence, until she gathered her courage and followed him. On the other side, they found a room with scales, potions and bloodstains everywhere. When asked if the medicine for the experiment was there, Nini revealed that she did not know which medicine they had used. He explained that he instead used his visualization ability to find the location. She pointed to her eye, revealing a scar around it, which enabled her to locate people by imagining their features. Riley compared this ability to radar, surprising her with the concept. By dismissing the question, he suggested that she was just talking to herself. Nini stated that he had acquired knowledge of black magic and enemy detection there. Riley questioned whether this was all a result of the experiment. The girl, positive, agreed. Nearby, there was a cage with people who were probably the targets of the experiments. They begged for salvation, with tears in their eyes. Riley decided to take action and free them, breaking all of the caged locks at once. He explained that he had said he would act before the situation worsened. With a gold coin in his hand, he instructed Nini to stand back and observe. When he snapped his fingers, the coin fell, indicating his freedom. Perplexed, the girl looked at the coin, not understanding what he meant by free.